It's very hard to be happy at times. Waking up in doorways, or it's been raining, especially the past few nights. And I've been homeless for 6 years. This weekend I'm going on for 6 years. And you're always waking up cold, and you're trying to boost your spirits, and it's and then boredom kicks in, and you don't really know what to do. Like, there's nothing else kind of to do but just sit here, and it's not even about the money sometimes, it's just kind of something to do, like, kind of
The
way.
support structures have closed. Drop-in centres have closed. Residential treatment centres closed. AA meetings and NA meetings closed. Everything closed down. So all the support structures that homeless people depended on were no longer available, and they became very isolated.
The regular punters that would come along Grafton Street, the people who would work in Dublin City, aren't there. And so they're not seeing the problem of homelessness with their own eyes. They're not seeing people sleeping rough. And I suppose then the problem of homelessness isn't really at the forefront of Dublin residents' mind as it once was. So I think the challenge there is COVID hasn't dissipated people sleeping rough on the streets of Dublin. And of course, homeless numbers have declined, certainly in the first quarter of 2020, certainly at the onset of the pandemic. But that is not to say that the people who, just because everyone is working from home or they're confined to their locality, it is not to say that people who are sleeping rough aren't sleeping rough anymore. So I think the challenges for those people specifically has been maybe a lack of social interaction. During any other given year, I feel that people sleeping at the side of the street would be able to at least talk to some more altruistic or good Samaritans throughout the year.
Yeah, it's been horrible, but I suppose it's been horrible for everybody. Like, people are trapped inside, but I'm trapped outside. It can be horrible to be trapped inside too. You need to balance it, of course. But no, it's been very, very up and down. I try and keep my spirits up as much as possible, but I think 6 years is enough. I think I deserve some sort of a bedsit or a place that I can call my own, and I can start to pay taxes and give back to the government, which I would do, and I would work, and that's the honest truth. I don't want to be sitting here asking people for money.
We now have 25 hostels, 1,000 homeless people every night staying in the hostels. We have almost 500 apartments and houses where we can offer a homeless person or a homeless family the key of the door and say, this is yours for the rest of your life. You never ever have to be homeless again. We have 4 drug treatment centres. We have a drop-in centre, and we actually run 2 schools for young people who have dropped out of school or who have been expelled from school. The idea of those schools is to try and prevent them becoming the homeless adults of the future. Yeah, we took over a block of apartments, about 100 apartments, which we used to isolate homeless people who may have tested positive or who may have been in contact with somebody who tested positive. And we've had over 1,000 people using that service over the past 9 months. And we have a doctor there, we have a nurse there, we have medical staff available. So that was a big investment for us, but we had to do it. Homeless hostels are congregated settings. You could have 3 or 4 or even more to a room, and therefore it was vital that if somebody was at risk or somebody contacted the virus or was in touch with somebody, that we had to isolate them. It was absolutely necessary that we took over that service, or that we developed that service. That was absolutely essential.
Sort of how our soup runs are operating, how our street outreach activities are operating. Well, up until the end of October, they simply weren't allowed to run. Given the restrictions, whether it be level 3 or level 5, it just wasn't possible to have 6 volunteers coming together, whether outdoors or not, to sort of walk the streets of Dublin. But after a little bit of negotiation and implementing some pretty strict safety measures, we were given the go-ahead, both from SVP National and from the Central Societies Committee in Trinity, to get our soup runs back up and running. So as of the beginning of November, we have our street outreach activities back up and running, and now they're going 3 nights a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights, we have pods of 6 volunteers walking the streets of Dublin, handing out essential food, clothing items, but I think most importantly, giving that sense of social interaction and providing that element of social interaction to people who probably wouldn't get it but for the street outreach. So I think in terms of what supports we can provide at a societal level in Trinity VDP, we're absolutely going to be continuing to provide our street outreach activities, our soup runs. Those are still going to be going on 3-4 nights a week at least. I think as maybe COVID dissipates, we'll be again providing volunteers to emergency accommodation facilities, volunteers that can go and serve food and provide that element of social interaction. I think at a governmental level, what I'm fearful of is that sort of political will that was there and that sort of collaboration that was there between homeless charities and the government and the city councils. I'm fearful that will all dissipate, and I'm fearful that political will just won't be there because the urgency won't be there, even though homelessness and the issue of housing and lack of housing and the issue of the homelessness crisis deserves as much political will and deserves as much collaboration between governmental departments and charities as possible. I think Ireland really needs an ambitious and audacious plan for housing and to sort of resolve and solve homelessness. And I'm fearful that political will just won't be there.
But everybody can be housed and everybody can be looked after. There's enough for everybody. No matter what the situation is, everyone can be happy. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't matter what's your intelligence. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter. What matters is we all should be sticking together and making each other happy.
It was a difficult year. There was one bright light in the year. More homeless people got their own accommodation than would normally do. And the reason for that was that a lot of Airbnbs came back into residential tenancy use because there were no tourists. And there weren't queues of people queuing up to try and view them. So there wasn't the same demand for residential property. And so landlords were quite happy to use us and other organizations. There is the impression sometimes that homelessness can be solved with money. And money is important and money is useful in providing services, but homelessness is a political problem and it can only be solved politically. And therefore, whatever pressure anybody can put on government ministers or government people to address the problem of homelessness, principally through putting the right to housing into the Constitution, through adopting the Kenny report, which controlled the price of land, because the price of land is such a big part in the price of houses, and continuing the ban on evictions. It is the political policies are the route to solving homelessness rather than raising more and more money.
Things have to change. I mean, they said it, and it was Sinn Féin that said it, things have to change, and maybe they're just saying that, but I back Sinn Féin over the Taoiseach. He didn't do much for us last time. Why would he do much for us this time? It's all about money, and I think it's all about money and being greedy, and it's all about happiness anymore. It's all about, it's like people don't want you to have money because then they won't have money. That's crazy. It's crazy. It really